Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros Live. This is Fantasy Football Draft Court. It is me, Judge Joey, and I am here with you to discuss some debates regarding some players and the expert consensus rankings. There will be decorum in my courtroom, Derek Brown. And if you're wondering what I'm wearing under this robe, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to let your imaginations run wild, everybody. Andrew Erickson is here to defend his positions, and Derek Brown is here to take his shots at rankings. The gentlemen have some difference of opinions when it comes to certain players and certain rankings, and we are going to also help decide using you, the jury. For those of us who are joining us here on the YouTube channel on Fantasy Pros, make sure you subscribe to Fantasy Pros, make sure you like this stream, and make sure you vote. You are here to help me make my decision. Now, perhaps I will go with the jury, perhaps I won't, perhaps I will offer arbitration as I have done in the past for this when we did it on Twitch last week, in case you missed it, and now we're doing it here on our YouTube channel. But I, at the end of the day, am Judge, Joey, and Executioner. So get ready, everybody, because court is in session. My gavel broke again. It always breaks. Anyway, let's get after it. Let's start here with the first argument that we're going to have today, and it is a good one. It's regarding Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars, running back, who going into last year, people were still excited about drafting. This year, not so much. Currently, Andrew Erickson has him ranked as RB28. RB28. It's pretty steep, not quite an RB2, but it's not terrible. Derek Brown, however, he is not having it. He has basically said RB45 for Travis Etienne. I will now hear the arguments regarding Travis Etienne and the differencing of opinion between these two gentlemen, and I use that term quite loosely here, gentlemen. So let us begin here and start court. Derek Brown, the floor is yours. I'd like to hear your case against one Travis Etienne, who, by the way, is the consensus RB3 in ECR currently. Derek Brown, the floor is yours.
I feel like I just have to bring this to light first for the judge, the jury. It's a sad day in the fantasy space when I am higher on Bashal Tutin than one Andrew Erickson. I just want to throw that out there as a piece of evidence. And backing Travis Etienne as an RB3 or higher, I feel like is a very slippery slope, considering injury problems. Last year, we know Etienne dealt with these, shoulder issue, hamstring problems, but the tackle breaking efficiency, it's gone out the window, people. I don't even know if Travis Etienne's going to be on this team once we get to week one, with Tank Bigsby leading the way, with Bashal Tutin also playing into this committee, and those two guys leading this backfield. Liam Cohen said he took one look at this backfield when he got the job and said, no. This is not good enough for this offense. They go out and they draft Bashal Tutin. That's an indictment on Travis Etienne. They have nobody left in this front office or coaching staff that's willing to cape up for Travis Etienne. And if you look at the efficiency's gone. So last year, Travis Etienne was 45th in missed tackles forced and 30th in yards after contact per attempt. And I know Erickson will bring up his points about injuries and such, but at this point in his career, can we say Travis Etienne can stay healthy and those numbers bounce back? I don't believe so. Even if you want to play out the narrative that he's the passing down back, outside of hype and hope, what has Etienne done even in the passing game? 1.0, 1.18, 0.94 yards per route run. These are not the metrics of a high-end running back, much less an RB3. Travis Etienne should be buried in ranks like he is in mine.
Ooh, buried in ranks. Buried. He's 1 year left on his contract. So Andrew Erickson, sometimes that's what folks like to say is, in the NFL, they chew you up and they spit you out, much like I do to people in my courtroom. And I want to know what you think here. Do you think this is a scenario where perhaps they do chew up, spit out Etienne, and he's actually a little bit more productive than Derek Brown would lead you to believe?
Well, I think to start the season, he's going to be the starting running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, he's on the roster right now. I think that he's still ahead of Tank Bigsby and Bashal Tutin, who, again, it's a new coaching staff. They also have to earn the coach's trust. Those guys have a ton of fumble security issues. Tank Bigsby, we're still hoping that he can maybe take a leap in the passing game. So at least Travis Etienne can command targets out of the backfield, which you don't see Tank Bigsby do through 2 years in the NFL. And to your point about no one's keeping up for Etienne in the building, what about the most important player on the Jacksonville Jaguars? The quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who has been Travis Etienne's teammate since Clemson. So if Trevor Lawrence wasn't the quarterback, I would probably agree with you here. I'd be like, there's no one in this building that's holding out hope for Travis Etienne. But there is. He has Trevor Lawrence's trust, and that's the most important factor when it comes to who's gobbling up high-value opportunities in this offense. I think that's Travis Etienne. I think that he's in the driver's seat right now to catch passes out of the backfield, to still see a role in the red zone. And to the point about the injuries last year, that's the reason why he wasn't efficient. Weeks 1 through 4, he forced more missed tackles than the entire season. Weird how that's before all the injuries happened. So I think that last year was really more about the injuries. He still had a higher rushing success rate than Tank Bigsby on a down-to-down basis. And yes, I love Bashal Tootin. I think that he's an explosive rookie that can be really effective in a tandem with one of these other running backs, because that's what we saw in Tampa Bay with Cohen. He used multiple running backs and pony personnel, and Rachaad White, as bad as he was as a pick last year, he was still the RB24 in half PPR when it was all said and done. So if Travis Etienne can be RB24 as the pass-catching running back in this offense alongside Tank Bigsby or Bashal Tootin, well, as an RB3 in a full PPR, that's a win in my book.
Some good arguments here. I think we should let the jury deliberate here and let them get a sense of what's going on. You both make some very good arguments of what's going on here. Certainly, I like the Clemson argument. I think that's very interesting, right? Because sure, it shouldn't matter, so much history, but in some ways it does. And these two have been connected for quite some time. Also, the injuries are an issue. When you are hurt, it's very difficult to perform at any level. So, Derek Brown, how much injury quotient do you take into account here when trying to make an assessment of ATN? Because let's be honest, a lot of guys with great talent, when they get hurt, doesn't matter. You can't perform. So why are you being so difficult regarding Travis Etienne?
Because the injuries have been a problem throughout his short career. Hamstring, shoulder issue beforehand, bruised ribs, foot sprain, and we all forget about the Liz Frank, although it is real. I would like to push back on one point that Erickson made. Is Trevor Lawrence really going to feel that good with Travis Etienne as his pass protector in the passing game, considering last year he was terrible? 58 pass blocking snaps, 8 hurries, 13 pressures. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is sitting pretty in the pocket with Travis Etienne covering his blind side.
Interesting. All right. So, Andrew, one of your big issues here was talking about the injuries of Travis Etienne. What about the fact that he's hurt a lot? It's a pretty good point that Derek Brown is making. Do you have any rebuttal for that?
I mean, running backs are a position that gets banged up constantly. Every running back is at liberty to suffer an injury. I guess my pushback would be, well, Etienne's not coming off the massive workload like he has the last 2 seasons, right? It's the guys that are coming off the 300-plus touches where we're concerned about. And that's not something I looked at enough with Etienne last year when you saw his efficiency really fall off a cliff at the end of 2023. So I think that he's just going to be a healthier running back this year. They've already talked about using him differently. When you go back and watch the Jaguars offense last year, it was him running up the middle constantly, banging into the tackles in between the guards. That's not a way to use Travis Etienne. Like, get this guy in space, and that's what they've talked about in this new offense. So I just think Etienne is going to be one of the running backs that's involved alongside either Tootin or Bigsby, just like we saw with Cohen. Bucky Irving wasn't a bell cow for most of the Tampa Bay's season. Rachaad White and Bucky Irving were a tandem, especially on the field at the same time. So if we're going to copy and paste what Cohen did from a backfield perspective, then we should expect 2 running backs to be involved. And I think Etienne separates himself from Tootin and Bigsby because of what he can do as a receiver. And not to say that he's this all-world talent at receiver, but he's better than Tank Bigsby, who, yeah, you're talking about trust. You trust to throw the ball to Tank Bigsby. Half of those targets end up being interceptions and fumbles. So that's an issue too.
All right. Now, gentlemen, the jury has delivered a verdict. Before we get to that verdict, I'm going to offer you both arbitration because Derek Brown, I think 45 is a little dismissive. And Andrew Erickson, I think your ranking here of 28 is a little bit too much. I would like to offer you an arbitration of an ECR of 35. Will you meet me in the middle, or would you rather go to the jury? Andrew Erickson, would you accept my arbitration?
Yes.
Derek Brown, do you accept my arbitration? 45. Puts him
only if
like
you will
J.K.
say Duval
Dobbins.
for the people. Only if you will say Duval for the court. If you do that, then I will accept the arbitration. Those are my terms.
The court accepts your terms. Duval.
It's worth it. It's so worth it.
We have come to a decision. The jury, however, has ruled in favor against drafting one Travis Etienne this year. So the jury says avoid him regardless. Derek Brown gets his first win of his whole life right here on Fantasy Draft Court.
Got to start somewhere.
It's got to start somewhere. It can only go down from here, Derek Brown. That's for damn sure. So, however, arbitration was accepted. We do care about our jury here and all of you hanging out at Fantasy Bros. By the way, if you're watching this, don't forget, like this video, share this video, subscribe to Fantasy Pros, and you just might win yourself some free stuff because we've got a James Cook Bills jersey we are giving away signed by Derek Brown. No, it's signed by James Cook. So there you go. James Cook jersey is going to be given away right here on this channel this month. So how do you win? Drop your comments below, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell till it goes ding, and like this video because this wig is itchy. And the least you could do is like this damn video. All right, let us get to the next person that we're bringing to court here today to make a settlement. The next person, we're bringing a player who I overdrafted last year. Quite foolishly, I was very bullish. I thought nothing could go wrong. And unfortunately, I forgot that Kyler Murray was his quarterback. I had Marvin Harrison everywhere because I had a lot of picks around 10, 11, 12, and unfortunately, it did not go well for me. So I want to bring Marvin Harrison to account. Court is now in session on Marvin Harrison Jr. The court will have order. Derek Brown, you have him as wide receiver 30. Andrew Erickson, wide receiver 17, does not see a sophomore slump anywhere coming here for this young man who did have some touchdowns here and there, had an identical rookie season to his father, which is kind of funny considering the lineage there and the Hall of Fame career he went on to have. However, that guy had Peyton Manning throwing him the football, not Kyler Murray, who spends half of his time on Call of Duty anyway, instead of reading the playbook. So it is time for you to convince me one way or another, and our jury, our audience here on our YouTube channel, whether we should or should not draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And make it quick because his wig is itchy. No, take your time. Derek Brown, make your case against Marvin Harrison Jr. because you clearly don't see him having a better 2025 as wide receiver 30 in your current ranks.
I feel like I'm being very nice or generous to Marvin Harrison Jr., considering he was the wide receiver 39 in fantasy points per game, the wide receiver 27 in expected fantasy points per game last year. And what has changed? They didn't go out and add any wide receivers of consequence. So what is going to be his role, and how much does the assumption of rational coaching and things changing get us in trouble yearly in fantasy? And this could be one of those situations. And for Marvin Harrison Jr., we could talk about Kyler Murray and his inability to utilize the middle of the field, but for Marvin Harrison Jr., it's the totality of all of it. You look at last year, weeks 1 through 9, 49.6 of his routes were vertical breaking. That's actually when he posted more efficiency, 0.93 yards or first downs per route run, 1.97 yards per route run. And then we look at, okay, well, maybe the usage got better as the year went along. It did to a certain extent. Vertical breaking routes went down to 38%, so he was used more in the high leverage routes that we want from Marvin Harrison Jr., but his numbers declined in the process. His first downs per route run dropped. His yards per route run dropped to 1.5. That's wide receiver 3 or 4 territory as far as per route efficiency. So it's tough for me to buy in on, I'm giving Marvin Harrison Jr. a small upgrade compared to what he did in his rookie season, but it is tough for me to buy in on him as a top 24 wide receiver when nothing else changed. Same OC, same quarterback, same target tree, and maybe same route deployment. I don't see the jump happening for Marvin Harrison Jr., and this is not a problem with talent. It's a problem with quarterback. It's a problem with usage.
All right, well, that's true. The usage was frustrating. Marvin Harrison Jr. got really good at running routes last year. Mostly deep ones, not exactly the most interesting branches on the tree, that's for sure. But not much has changed, Andrew Erickson, year over year. Same QB, same system. That can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. One thing that has changed is the size of Marvin Harrison's biceps. That dude's been working out, eating the macros with Andrew Erickson. Are you guys doing that hit training? Is that what you're doing nowadays? The kids doing the hit training?
David Boston workout, I hear.
Yeah, you're doing a little the cross country kind of stuff too. What are you guys working on there? What are you, the CrossFit? Is that what you're doing with him, you Andrew Erickson? Huh?
I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. has seen a cardio machine over the last 3 months. If he, the size of his arms, he's just been right on the preacher curl machine, just curling away.
Just preacher curls all day. Well, Andrew Erickson, maybe that'll help him with contested catches, which were not his forte last year. So Andrew Erickson, defend your ranking. Derek Brown says he's being kind, but I don't know. At that ranking, it doesn't feel very kind to me. So you are being kinder at wide receiver 17 as opposed to his wide receiver 30. Why is that?
Because players are allowed to get better entering their second season. It's actually pretty common for a lot of year 2 wide receivers to have their first fantasy wide receiver 1 season. It actually comes in their second year. So you point to, well, nothing's going to change in the offense. Well, we're all pointing to all the ways that the team used Marvin Harrison Jr. the wrong way as a rookie. If we can all tell this stuff, then clearly the coaching staff can also tell as well. Remember, they didn't draft any offensive players in the NFL draft. They're copy and pasting the exact same personnel from last year going into this year, which means, okay, if they want to get the same result last season and not make the playoffs, okay, well, then we'll just run it back. We'll do the exact same thing. That's not going to be the case. I think they're going to change things up and put Marvin Harrison Jr. in better situation to succeed entering his second season. When you're talking about the opportunity he had last year, that's what's going to be the same when he had 48% of the air yards, almost half. He had a 24% target share. And this was featuring games when he played indoors. You know what's cool about the Cardinals this year? I pointed this out on some of the betting shows. 13 indoor games, the most of any NFL team. As you look at the splits between Marvin Harrison Jr. outside versus inside, it's a lot better indoors. Those fast track. So I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is primed for a sophomore bounce back after he was vastly overvalued last year. I think that's just leaving a sour taste in people's mouths where, man, I got burned by this guy so badly last year, I can't draft him again. So for me, I think that when you see a player that was top 5 in end zone targets, this is why I was pounding the table for Jamar Chase entering his second season, or entering last year as the wide receiver 1 overall, because the easiest path to a wide receiver 1 overall finish is through red zone targets. And we're sitting with a guy entering his second season after, I think, yes, a disappointing rookie year, but not terribly bad. He had 1 drop all season. And we're writing this guy off like he's a total bust. He had 1 drop and it happened in week 1 against the Buffalo Bills in that game where he was wide open for a touchdown. So I'm just leaving the light on for Marvin Harrison to improve in year 2 because we see it. And I think that the talent is going to be shown. So.
All right. There's some good arguments on both sides. We will let the jury decide now. We'll go back and forth here a little bit too as the jury deliberates, because I think if you look at a 62 reception, 885 yards, 8 touchdowns for a rookie wide receiver, that's pretty good. Maybe we put too much on him too quickly. Great college career at Ohio State. Obviously a famous father. Perhaps, again, we were being a little impatient with Marvin Harrison Jr.'s career. And sometimes we are a little impatient. Sometimes it's the opinion of this court that we have impatience and we must be more kind to some of these young men who are trying very hard to succeed in the NFL. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is committed. I think he is a very good talent. I still have massive concerns with Kyler Murray. However, what this judge does remember, and he's old enough to remember, is when DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty good fantasy season. So everybody making jokes there, and I see all the short people jokes about Kyler Murray. As a short person myself, I take umbrage with those short comments, boys and girls in the YouTube chat. I will say this too. I think that a little bit more patience, a little bit more work, and maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. realizes he was resting on his own laurels and didn't expect enough. Maybe he thought the NFL was going to be easy for him because he's been around it his whole life. Perhaps that could be the case. Now, in between these two yokels, we have a real ECR for Marvin Harrison Jr., and it's 20. Now, 20 is a lot closer to 17 than it is to 30. And the expert consensus typically is pretty darn good at FantasyPros.com. That's where you can check that out, by the way. Now, Derek Brown, all the way at 30, that is a tough pill for me to swallow. Now, if I could get him at 30, I'd like to take him at 30, but the problem is he ain't going to be there at 30. Here are the other names going around Marvin Harrison Jr. in his current ADP. DK Metcalf. Well, I don't believe in Aaron Rodgers either. DJ Moore. I'd like to believe in Caleb Williams, but again, that's wish casting. Cortland Sutton. I believe in it, but when I'm thinking sophomore slump, man, Bo Nix certainly could come to mind. Devontae Smith, he's solid, but I don't think he's got the same kind of upside Marvin Harrison does. And then Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers also pretty good, pretty solid, but without the upside. So the more I look at this grouping, the more I tend to agree with Marvin Harrison. So I am going to send it out to the jury, and the jury agrees with me. 60% is in favor of drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. There you go.
It's a rigged jury.
Draft him.
The rigged jury. This court is in shambles.
You watch your tongue. I'll hold you in contempt, Derek Brown.
I hold myself in contempt.
You hold your tongue. Don't make me get the bailiff, bring you over there. I will put you in jail for the evening. Don't think that I won't. I'm looking at you, Derek Brown. I'm looking at you. I got to glue this gavel after the show. Get that Gorilla Glue. Make sure it sticks again.
Better glue than last time.
You know, I just got this thing, and I literally broke the first time last show. And it, you know, nowadays you can't get a good gavel for less than $30, I guess. I don't know. All right, let us go to the next person on our list. Before we get there, quick reminder, too, that draft season is quickly going to be upon us. So Draft Assistant is a great way to get prepared for every single draft that you have. It'll give you recommendations in real time when you're on the clock. It connects directly to your draft and provides you real-time suggestions, real-time estimations on which players that could be taken before your next pick. It tells you who's going to be taken after you, what the prediction possibilities are. It's basically like having one of us helping you in the room as your draft is going on, and it fully integrates and customizes to your league. So whether it's cheat sheets, whether it's suggested picks, team build, ADP, other factors, we've got you covered. Dominate all your drafts in real time. Take the guesswork away from drafting. Draft Assistant, that's the tool you need at fantasypros.com/assistant, or just download the Fantasy Football Draft Wizard app today so that you can dominate all of your leagues. Let's get to the next one here. An interesting name just came into this courtroom. He's very fast, though. We have to catch him. We have to pin him down really quick because the court is now in session for one Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, he's quick, he's fast, he's exciting, he's fun. But he's also got a lot of company now because Rashee Rice is going to be back. And maybe Hollywood Brown will somehow find a way to play a full season. Who knows? Crazy things do happen. Derek Brown has Xavier Worthy at a wide receiver 45. Boy, when Derek Brown hates something, he sure does hate it. Andrew Erickson at wide receiver 22. When Andrew Erickson likes something, boy, oh boy, he sure does like it. I don't know how I feel about either of these rankings. They make me a little uncomfortable, to be honest. The ECR is at wide receiver 27. So as you look at it, probably a little bit closer to Andrew Erickson's taste, obviously, than to Derek Brown. So, Derek Brown, why are you killing Xavier Worthy before the season has even begun?
I actually think I'm being, again, very kind with this ranking, considering Xavier Worthy, before he earned, or I guess was handed, the Rashee Rice role, weeks 1 through 12, Xavier Worthy was wide receiver 51 in fantasy points per game. So my ranking of 45 is giving growth to Xavier Worthy, with him going right back in the role that he played last year. Because Rashee Rice is going to be in the huddle, Rashee Rice is going to be healthy, and he's going to resume the role that he plays in this offense. Because Xavier Worthy could play the Rashee Rice role. Rashee Rice can't do the same things as Xavier Worthy. So, Worthy's going to go back to stretching the field like we saw in weeks 1 through 12, people. When he was the wide receiver 51, he earned only a 13% target share. He had a 12.1 ADOT, and the design target rate, again, not in the Rashee Rice role, was only 13%. In that role, he couldn't get open. Amongst 124 qualifying wide receivers, 96th in separation, 111th in route win rate. You team this with Patrick Mahomes over the last 2 years has quietly been one of the worst deep ball passers in the NFL. It does not equal good things for Xavier Worthy, because Rashee Rice is reclaiming his role, and Xavier Worthy is going to go back to being a deep threat on a team with a quarterback that, unfortunately, Chiefs fans, cover your ears, cannot throw deep over the last 2 years. Bottom 10 in CPOE, bottom 10 in off-target rate. So Xavier Worthy is more of a landmine in drafts than this wide receiver 2 that Mr. Erickson is propping him up as.
Did you say he is 96th in separation?
96th.
How can a man that fast be 96 in separation? How is that even possible?
Runs into corners and keeps running right with them. I don't know.
That's
I'll defer to the judge and the jury on that one.
You know, I gotta say, that's a hell of a stat, Derek Brown. You know, you don't always impress me, but every now and then, you have your moments.
It's like a broken watch.
You're right twice a day, but right now, today, only once. We'll see how the rest of the show goes. Andrew Erickson, let's take a look at you, my friend, and see where you are at, because for a man that fast, you'd think you would get away from people, but clearly that's not working. So wide receiver 22, just for perspective, too. We're talking about that other grouping where Marvin Harrison lives, where Terry McLaurin lives, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton. Now, those guys have all given you a little bit more of a look at that kind of return on value. Xavier Worthy hasn't quite gotten there. So why, with a returning Rashee Rice, will things be better for Xavier Worthy in 2025?
Well, I think with Xavier Worthy, I'm not trying to discredit for what he did in the Rashee Rice role. You know, we've seen a lot of receivers given opportunities when a player goes down, a teammate, and do nothing. I mean, look at the Chiefs. How many times have we looked for a Chiefs receiver to step up? Oh, they're attached to Patrick Mahomes. There's no Tyreek Hill. Someone should step up, and they never do. Well, Xavier Worthy, as a 21-year-old rookie, stepped up in a role that the Chiefs probably did not envision him in whatsoever when they drafted him in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. They had Rashee Rice. To your point, they had Marquise Brown. And by the time week 4 comes around, both those guys are on injured reserve. So they had to thrust Worthy into a bigger role than maybe they anticipated. And I mean, I don't want to discredit what he did. Over 2 yards per route run. He was also one of Patrick Mahomes' favorite red zone targets. Everyone's talking about the Rashee Rice role. Rashee Rice had 2 red zone targets last season. 2.
In 3 games.
Yeah, he had 2. So did Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy just had many red zone targets as Rashee Rice did. So Patrick Mahomes showed last year, hey, I trust Xavier Worthy in the red zone. We know Andy Reid likes to be creative, using guys on jet sweeps, getting them in space. Xavier Worthy can score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. And yeah, maybe he had trouble getting open, but Joe, he didn't have trouble finding the end zone last year. 12 touchdowns. Pretty impressive as both a rusher and a receiver. So I think Xavier Worthy, yes, I think that he's more of a boom or bust type of pick, but we always talk about shooting for upside. And I think Xavier Worthy, what he did at such a young age. Look, Amon-Ra St. Brown, remember his second year where a lot of people were pushing back because, oh, we only did it because the injuries in the Lions offense for a second-year receiver. Oh, what did he do his second season? You know, he blew up and he broke out. So, again, I want to bet on second-year receivers making the leap, especially when they're attached to a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who we've seen support fantasy viable weapons. And to the point about Mahomes and the deep ball, yeah, it hasn't been great the last couple seasons, but I think it's going to change. I think that deep ball statistics are, there's a lot of variance when it comes to them with the deep ball. Like 1 year you see some quarterbacks are at the top of the league in terms of deep ball, same with the receivers, and then the next year they're at the bottom. So after 2 down years for Mahomes as a deep ball passer, the fact that they drafted Xavier Worthy where they did in 2024, the fact that they were trying to get him more involved downfield, I think it's going to be better. Again, he caught 33% of his deep shots last year. He had 21 deep targets, and it got better in the second half of the season. So I'm going to bet on the deep ball having a better connection in year 2. And going back to what Worthy did from week 11 onward as a rookie, one of just 10 rookie receivers to average 13 points per game over the last 4 seasons. So 22 years old, super explosive playmaker. Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill, their second seasons under Andy Reid as speed receivers with some question marks. Both wide receiver 1s in year 2.
All right. I have heard your arguments. I must say I like Xavier Worthy as a similar fashion to why I used to like Jameson Williams. He's a splashy flex play, boomer bust. Maybe he gives me a big touchdown and a big play. Maybe he doesn't, but I don't have to rely on him. So personally, he's not a top 36 guy for me. However, 45 is also, I think, a little tough. As the jury is set to deliberate here, we're deliberating. The poll's up. You could vote now if you want to draft Xavier Worthy or not. Currently, like I said, he is going in the ECR, the expert consensus rankings, as wide receiver 27. I think that's a little high. Chris Godwin, please. I'd much rather have him, even with the injury. Ted McMillan, much rather have him. Jameson Williams, much rather have him. I'll take a shot on Travis Hunter. Even George Pickens, I think, has a little bit more floor weekly than Xavier Worthy. That is this judge's opinion. But I'd like to hear the jury's opinion here if we're going to draft him at this current rate. I have to say, going into the 40s where Derek Brown has him, Jayden Reed, I think that's close. I think that's close at 42. Stephon Diggs. Again, I don't like drafting hurt guys all the time, but at 43, there's a lot of upside there. But Xavier Worthy, close. Josh Downs, close. Ricky Pearsall, close. So I see where Derek Brown is going, and I see what The Rock is cooking there. By the way, Andrew Erickson, you address me as Joe. It's Judge Joey. So just watch your mouth. All right? This is your first warning. There won't be a second one. It's just so you know.
Sorry,
In
Your Honor.
my courtroom, there's rules here, pal.
Sorry,
There's
Your Honor.
rules. Yeah. Somebody go get me a sandwich, too. I gotta use a sandwich. All right. Some of the people here agree as well. Pickens over Worthy in a heartbeat from Fatherman. There was some other Pickens love here from Logan. Pickens greater than Worthy for sure. Yet, in the ECR, that's not the case, boys and girls. It's not the case. So, I'd like to see the results of the poll here and see where we're at. And I don't know. Here we go. The results are in. The jury has spoken. And I agree. At the current rate, we are not drafting Xavier Worthy. 53% against. Case dismissed. Xavier Worthy will not be on my fantasy team at the current rate. So that puts you at a 2-1 deficit here. Actually, no, it's 1-1 at an arbitration. So actually, it's a very interesting program. We've got 2 more people left here to deliberate on. And we've got another ad read that I'm sure I don't have a graphic for today. So that's going to be fun. I'm out here doing ad reads with my gavel in my hand. I don't have anything to block it. So here you go, everybody. If you want to keep the conversation going, you know what you do? You go join our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat. That's the place to be. Oh, wait, we have a board. Look at me. My God, that's a handsome SOB right there. Let me tell you. We got Boggs and Fitz doing shows on Tuesdays. Worm and Fitz doing shows on Tuesdays. Pretty much Fitz and somebody every single Tuesday. fantasypros.com/chat. That's the place to be. And you can be on those shows asking your questions. You want to find leagues with better people, not crappy people who collude and do stupid things, or maybe you've bested all of your friends and relatives and you want more of a challenge? Go join our Discord. We have a whole channel in there just for that. Just for finding leagues. We've got waiver wire channels. We've got draft mock channels where you can just sit and mock draft all day. So again, be part of the community of Fantasy Pros. Go join our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat. It is free. It is fun. All right, make sure you like this stream because, again, this wig is extremely itchy. And I just want to reiterate that for the second time here. If I'm going through all this pain of wearing this wig, it's very itchy. I tried to put the cap on. You're supposed to wear under the wig. It was shrinking my head. It was so tight.
I would like to say the judge looked very presentable, very handsome.
I looked like a character from, was it, what's that Marlon Wayans movie? Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. I kind of looked like that. And it was shrinking my head so much that blood was not circulating to my brain and I couldn't host the show. So now I'm wearing this wig. And the least you could do is like this stream and subscribe to the channel. It's literally the least you can do for my pain and suffering. Let's talk about the pain and suffering of drafting our next guy. Speak of the devil. It's Jayden Reed. Court for fantasy football is now in session. Jayden Reed is the next defendant here. Derek Brown has him at wide receiver 57. Andrew Erickson at 34. We just mentioned Jayden Reed, so he is at 42. 42. So the expert consensus ranking is basically actually, no, it's where Andrew Erickson is. It's actually, well, you guys like him less than everybody. 32, Andrew Erickson 34, Derek Brown at 57. I told you the wig is really hindrance. I'm doing this for your enjoyment, everybody. So let's talk about it here. Let's talk about Jayden Reed. So clearly you guys are even fading him from the expert consensus. So not big fans of Jayden Reed. I don't know if this has to do with Matthew Golden. I don't know if it has to do with hating Jordan Love. I don't know if this has to do with taking shots at Pat Fitzmaurice. I don't know. You tell me. Derek Brown, wide receiver 57. Proceed. The court will know your arguments against Jayden Reed at his current ECR and ADP.
Well, Jayden Reed being a player that's outperformed his usage in back-to-back years, don't know if that occurs in the third year. But last year, while he disappointed everybody as the wide receiver 38, he was the wide receiver 60 in expected fantasy points per game. So all I'm saying is that Jayden Reed stops running hot with touchdowns because the usage doesn't line up with where he actually should be ranked, where I have him in the 50s. You look at his usage last year. He wasn't a full-time player in this offense. He was outside the top 35 wide receivers in deep targets and red zone targets. So where is the high leverage usage even when he's on the field? He was outside the top 40 receivers in target share, receiving yards per game, first read share, first downs per route run. Every single metric we should care about in fantasy, Jayden Reed was outside of all of that, while also running a route with only 69% of dropbacks. As nice as that number is, that still only made him 64th amongst wide receivers. And looking at Jayden Reed this year, I'm more worried that we are going to see the wide receiver by committee that Matt LaFleur and the Packers love so much. And maybe Jayden Reed is on the outside looking in from that committee, because the Green Bay Packers did go out and draft Matthew Golden. Is he taking his job? Maybe, maybe not. But Savion Williams also could have something to say in this wide receiver room, who honestly, he's the same archetype. He's Jayden Reed. He's Deebo Samuel, but I dare say better possibly in that role. So does Jayden Reed even hold on to his starting role once we get into training camp and Savion is looking like the athletic marvel, the Feldman freak lister? I don't know if Jayden Reed is even a starter in this offense when we get to week 1, and that's why he's in the 50s.
Also on that freak list, Andrew Erickson. We all know that. Very high vertical jump.
Well, that's a different freak list.
Great 40 times. Andrew Erickson's on the freak list because he has 2 tequila sunrises, and he is up on that bar. He is up on that bar, and he is dancing, and it is a good time. It is a good time. I've even seen the clips from Andrew's wedding. There's nobody I've ever seen have a better time at their own wedding than Andrew Erickson, which is also an event that you and I were not invited to, Derek Brown. I just want the record. Will the record show that we were not invited to the wedding? Thank you. I just
so dismissive of the judge. Just have to throw that in there. So dismissive.
You know, you think you know.
You can't trust the mail service, guys. It's not
Sure.
Man throws the postal service
under the bus.
Under the bus.
Yeah, the invitation must have got lost in the mail. That's it. Lost in the mail.
Text messages don't work either, apparently.
Yeah, geez, yeah. They just know that the open bar would have gotten its money's worth.
Yeah, a bit drained.
Showed up. Yeah. All right. So Andrew Erickson, I like Matthew Golden. I have concerns about the Packers offense, period. But on top of that, I don't feel like Jayden Reed disappears altogether. I feel like Jayden Reed is a bye-week wide receiver. That's my value for Jayden Reed. So convince me otherwise, because you have him still as a fringy wide receiver 3, whereas I think he's a 4, a guy that, like I said, he is a guy that, so-and-so is out this week. All right, I'll plug in Jayden Reed for a week, and then he goes right back to the bench. That's how I feel about Jayden Reed. That's useful in fantasy leagues, but not necessarily a target either. So let's get the case for Jayden Reed. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, unlike Debro, I think he's actually going to be a starter on his team because he's good at football. I think he's still going to be a starter. You talked about efficiency metrics and things that we care about. Yards per route run, he was top 20. I care about yards per route run. He's led the Packers despite not having a ton of targets in his offense. He has led the Green Bay Packers in receptions and yards for 2 straight seasons. So why would they go away from their best wide receiver entering year 3, where I talked about year 2 breakouts? The highest rate of players finishing as wide receiver 1s for the first time in their careers, 32%, is year 3. And last year, I'm willing to give a pass to some of the Packers wide receivers because their quarterback was injured the entire season. Jordan Love got hurt in week 1. By the way, before he got hurt, Jayden Reed was well over 100 yards and on his way to a sophomore breakout. He had another 100-yard game in week 4 in the first game that Jordan Love came back after missing 2 weeks. And this team operated by Josh Jacobs bell cow because, hey, we don't feel 100% about our quarterback. Again, talking about the betting shows with the Green Bay Packers. I think this defense is in rough shape. They did not address edge. They did not address cornerback. I think there are problems at both of those sides of the football. So I think this team's going to be in a lot of shootouts. The NFC North, Vikings offense, Lions offense, Bears offense ascending. Okay, so if they're going to be dropping back to throw more, well, what does that mean? Oh, more 3 receiver sets. Oh, Jayden Reed is actually playing more because he's actually good. And when you look at him from the slot, we've seen plenty of slot receivers succeed last year. When you look at the leaders in reception per EPA from the slot last season, Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 1. JSN, wide receiver 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 1. Jayden Reed, that was the one guy. So he's showing to me all the efficiency marks that I want to see from a slot receiver that they also move in motion a ton. So I think he's really more being drafted ahead his floor, where he was wide receiver 26 overall last year. So he's going to take this massive step back because they drafted Matthew Golden, who doesn't profile as an alpha wide receiver. If anything, if he's a field stretcher, he's going to open things up underneath for Jayden Reed to be a PPR slot merchant. I think so. So I'm buying the talent here for a player that I liked a lot coming out of school. He hit as a rookie. He improved his efficiency in year 2. I think his quarterback's going to be healthy in year 3. So wheels up for Jayden Reed.
Interesting. You know what? I think perhaps I'm not giving Jayden Reed enough credence. I do believe that he is a wide receiver that will, still have his opportunities. Perhaps we're not also giving enough credence to the fact that Jordan Love was hurt most of last year and playing hurt, not nearly as good as he was. So as the jury deliberates, I'm going to put that question to you, Derek Brown. Does the disappointing season of Jayden Reed have more to do with Jayden Reed or the health of Jordan Love?
Has more to do with the health of Jordan Love, but also the usage by their head coach. It's impossible to really hit the top end of your outcomes when you're only running a route on 69% of dropbacks. So unless he's just crazy efficient with touchdowns, like he was not last year but the year before, it's impossible to hit a high-end mark for your outcomes, even if it doesn't matter how efficient you are. Because I'm not going to push back on his efficiency. It's the usage and the drawing of targets and being on the field. And considering with the addition of Golden and Savion Williams, I don't think the wide receiver by committee changes at all. Romeo Doubs is the only wide receiver on that team that had over a 70% route per dropback share. I mean, it was Doubs and it was Tucker Kraft, and I don't see how that changes in 2025.
Andrew Erickson, what about the fact that it is such a crowded group? I mean, there's more guys in that room than there are, at this point, different Monster Energy drinks in Derek Brown's refrigerator currently. There's a lot of wide receivers in that space. So does that make it difficult to get excited about Jayden Reed for you?
I think that, and you pointed this out in the beginning, where we were both down on ECR comparative to our rankings with Jayden Reed, and that's because if I have to pick a Packer, I want Tucker Kraft, right? Like that's where I would push my chips in when I'm coming to, okay, I'll bet the tight end is the guy that kind of emerges because we've talked about, yes, this offense doesn't necessarily feature an alpha wide receiver 1, and that's true, but you're getting Jayden Reed as a low-end wide receiver 3 when we've seen his spike weeks, like we saw at the beginning of last season, where he's putting up over 100 yards because he's a dynamite after the catch, and I just think they're going to pass a lot more. So when the Packers are in shootouts, Jayden Reed's going to be running routes. Like that's the difference I think I'm going to see more of this year, is where if the Packers are down, he's going to be out there more, running more routes. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, we're down by 14 points. Let's take Jayden Reed off the field. Let's run 2 tight end sets, because that makes a lot of sense. I believe LaFleur is going to change things up, and they're going to give their quarterback more dropbacks. I think that's going to help Reed a lot.
So Jayden Reed is right now currently at, again, looking at the ECR, Jayden Reed currently going off at 42, the 42nd wide receiver. Once again, just to recap, Derek Brown has him at 57, Andrew Erickson at 34. I'm actually where the ECR is. I think 40-something is good. 40-something is good. I think 57 is a little insulting to Jayden Reed and what he's done so far in his young career over the first 2 seasons. And it looks like the jury has delivered their judgment, and it is 60% against drafting Jayden Reed. The verdict is avoid him. Case dismissed. You could appeal in a couple weeks to Fantasy Draft Court if you like. But there you go. So Derek Brown cleaning up here. He's in the pole position coming into our final argument, everyone. So here we go. A very polarizing player. I'm glad Pat Fitzmaurice isn't here for this one, because the last guy we're going to talk about today is a wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills. It is one Keon Coleman. That's right, Keon Coleman. Derek Brown has him at wide receiver at 59. Andrew Erickson at 48. You can't find a nicer guy. Keon Coleman is lovely. Wide receiver 50 is where the ECR is currently. So again, somewhere in between these two. I just heard an interview with him recently where he said he went back and watched all the tape from last year. They asked him, what do you have to improve on? And he said, everything. And I agree, Keon. I agree. Everything is the right answer. Blocking, route running, catching the football. Nice kid. Rooting for Keon Coleman. but that doesn't make him good at football necessarily in fantasy. That's what we're trying to figure out here. And I want to hear from you. Drop your comments in about Keon Coleman, what you think. What are your takes about Keon Coleman? Let's hear Derek Brown go against Keon Coleman, the idea of drafting him at his current ECR, or even at Derek Brown's for that matter. Derek Brown, the court will now hear your arguments.
If only Keon Coleman scored fantasy points with all the quotables that he has in the media, then we would be loving Keon Coleman, but he doesn't. And unfortunately, Keon Coleman doesn't do the one thing that we care about besides scoring fantasy points, and that's getting open and getting usage in the Buffalo Bills offense. Last year, again, wide receiver 55 in fantasy points per game. So my 59 ranking is a little bit lower than that. So I'm not projecting that he'd take a step forward. Nay, I think he takes a step back in this pecking order. Because last year, the Buffalo Bills drafted Keon Coleman to be their man coverage option. The guy that beats man coverage, and when Josh Allen sees pre-snap man coverage, he's going to Keon Coleman, and Keon Coleman could not deliver. If you look at Keon Coleman last year, he had a 27% target per route run rate against man coverage. Against zone, that dropped to 14%. Now, why all this matters is because they brought in a guy that actually can excel against man coverage, and that is Joshua Palmer, who was 5th in route win rate, 5th in separation against man coverage last year, as well as quietly being top 15 overall in both of those metrics. So Joshua Palmer is taking Keon Coleman's role in this offense this year. And if that happens, Keon Coleman's going to be what? The guy that they go to against zone coverage? No. That's the role for Elijah Moore, Khalil Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid. As well as he can't get open versus zone coverage. Keon Coleman, amongst 128 qualifying wide receivers versus zone last year, 125th in separation, 88th in route win rate. So if he doesn't have this man coverage role, which is going to be fruitful for Josh Palmer, considering Buffalo has faced, they've been inside the top 5 in man coverage faced in each of the last 3 seasons. So Buffalo knows this is a role that they have to have somebody dependable who will be Josh Palmer and not Keon Coleman. So without that role, Keon Coleman's going to be running wind sprints. He's going to be on the outside looking in.
Interesting take. Also interesting bring up Josh Palmer. He's also 5th in soft tissue injuries in the lower half of his body over the last 2 years as well. So I don't know how reliable he is. Just had a fun conversation. You can go check it out on our YouTube channel. It should be up there later today, where actually Terrell Furman was talking about Josh Palmer as well. So I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse, Derek.
Josh Palmer, also Erickson, a former Josh Palmer stan, would like to present that to the court.
That is the rub.
I'm not just a former stan.
I have heard Josh Palmer and Nico Collins in the same sentence out of Mr. Erickson's mouth.
Order! There will be order in this courtroom. Ah, crap! My gavel broke again. Just got to put it back together.
Without a gavel, can you bring the court to order?
I can.
I'm asking for the people at home.
I can.
I don't want to be romantic.
By the way, we need a poll up. How do I look in this wig? Sexy or very sexy? Those are the 2 options.
We need a third option.
Andrew Erickson. Josh Palmer is now here. Khalil Shakir still around. James Cook catching a lot of footballs. The post-Stephon Diggs era in Buffalo certainly was different last year. I don't think anybody quite saw how it developing. Now, what it looks like in this second year removed from Stephon Diggs is also intriguing. Do you believe that Keon Coleman can step into that void and get better at quote-unquote everything in year 2? Because we do see a lot of wide receivers break out in their second season.
Yes, we do. We also see, to Josh Palmer's point, we also see a lot of receivers break out in year 5 on new teams. So I don't think there's a reason why you can't draft both Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer, because both of them are very cheap and they're attached to a quarterback like Josh Allen. But when it comes to specifically with Keon Coleman, you have to factor in that he got hurt in the middle of the season. And we see injuries completely derail rookies, especially when they happen early in the season. Before that midseason wrist injury, which was weird. It seemed like a lot of guys were getting banged up wrists last year. Kind of a weird injury. But he was emerging for the Buffalo Bills, averaging over 2 yards per route run. Very high in terms of receiving yards over expectation. And the thing that stuck out to me was in terms of some of his efficiency, he was great after the catch. He was top 10 yards after the catch per reception. He was also top 10 in average depth of target. And those things go against each other. It's hard to create chunk yards after the catch, but you're also seeing a lot of downfield targets. Now, to Debro's point about separation, yeah, he's not a great separator. He wasn't a great separator at Florida State, and to no surprise, he's not that great of a separator at the NFL. Like, that's not really shocking. But what the Bills do with him, specifically with Josh Allen, he goes to him in the red zone a lot. He led the team in red zone targets before his injury. I remember reading the beat reports last year in training camp. Josh Allen, who's his favorite red zone target? Not Dalton Kincaid. It was Keon Coleman. So if we're all projecting James Cook to, touchdown regression, touchdowns, there's no way he's going to score this many touchdowns, then who's scoring the touchdowns in this offense? I think it's going to be Keon Coleman. So when I'm looking at receivers I can get as my wide receiver 4 that have a full-time role in an offense attached to Josh Allen with red zone upside, I want that guy as my wide receiver 4 on my bench. And if it happens to be Josh Palmer instead, like, okay, that's fine. I just feel really confident that there is a breakout potential Bills receiver on this roster, and just making a bet to Josh Allen, I think that's a layup bet to make. So I'm not ruling out Keon Coleman as that guy, but I'd be open to Josh Palmer as another option as well. So that's the way I see it.
The court would like to submit evidence. Evidence here of something that Andrew Erickson was discussing. What we have here is we have Jackson Smith-Njigba rookie season hindered by injury as well. Very disappointing. I also believe a wrist injury. Can we get the judges? Yes. Now, the wrist injury, second-year breakout, we saw from Jackson Smith-Njigba. So just let the jury know that piece of evidence has been submitted here. And now the jury may deliberate based on that evidence. This is a second-year wide receiver. Second-year wide receiver breakouts can be a thing. Josh Allen is an MVP caliber quarterback. We know that. Can he improve Keon Coleman year over year? The jury is now deliberating.
I have a question for the judge.
The judge, you may approach the bench. Yes, I'm listening.
I need a special session with the judge. I just have one question. Did those glasses come with the wig?
No, I've had them. That's Old Man Joe. You've seen Old Man Joe. These are the glasses I wear when I yell at the clouds. And we liked it.
We drafted, like a Benjamin
in my day, we drafted
costume.
10 running backs in the first round, and we liked it. That's the way we played fantasy football. I don't need a point for a reception. I don't need any points. We never had points for anything. You just drafted players, and then you went home. And you got drunk. And then you watched football, and that's how we played, and we liked it. Half point, quarter point, tight end premium. What the hell is that? Damn it. Anyway, the jury has deliberated and decided the fate of Keon Coleman. This one was very close. Razor thin. 56% say they are not drafting Keon Coleman. I disagree at wide receiver 50 where he is. I would be drafting him over Rashid Shaheed. I mean, one plays with Tyler Shuck, the other plays with Josh Allen. My God. Luther Burden, okay. You know, I'm thinking of the other guys around here, and I think a wide receiver 50 is right where Keon Coleman needs to be. So, in a dissenting opinion that I will be writing after this program, I dissent from this decision by the jury. I will instead award this to Andrew Erickson because I do think at wide receiver 50.
What kind of court am I in?
I can the kangaroo court.
You don't have a say.
You were going to win anyway. It doesn't matter.
You won by the jury,
do
but
not have a say. This is
Judge Joey at the end of the day.
This is the
Judge
people's
Joey's court. No, it's not. It's mine.
Take
Don't
to the
ever forget
comments,
it.
people. This
Yes,
is the people's court.
It's a kangaroo court, and I'm the kangaroo. And ladies and gentlemen, this is one of many editions of Fantasy Football Court you can enjoy here on our YouTube channel. Again, did we get the results of the poll? The Draft Court here, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, next week, right here on the channel. Join us for Draft Court, and I'll be wearing this wig again. Did we get the results of the poll? How do I look in this wig? Sexy or very sexy? Because I feel like that's a very important result I'd like to know.
I feel like they'd avoided it. I
show.
don't think that poll went up.
Oh, I think one or two went up with this wig. Let me tell you, this is a good-looking wig, my friends. I look very handsome in this.
That's a different poll. I don't think it's the type of poll we're talking about.
I want to thank our two lawyers today, Derek Brown and Andrew Erickson, for preparing our arguments. I want to thank everyone for joining us today in the jury here and being very fun and discussing all of these wide receivers and running backs that they may or may not want to draft. Again, join us on the YouTube channel, subscribe, drop your comments below. You might win yourself a James Cook autographed jersey from Pristine Auction. I would show it to you. Ha! I can now. Look at that. Boom. That's a good looking jersey. So on the way out, like the stream, subscribe to the channel, drop your comments. And just like that, you're automatically in this to win this. You don't have to do a damn thing else except ring the bell till it goes ding for notifications so you never miss a piece of content here on the channel. It's a good looking jersey. It's red. Matches D-Bro's face when I say embarrassing things here on the channel. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Derek Brown, I'm Judge Joey. We'll see you next time, kids. This court is adjourned.
80% in favor of the Judge Joey wig. Wow.
Obviously.
The people have spoken.
Clearly. I mean, just to torture me for no other reason.
Joey's wig will be